Welcome to this month's 2-Minute Tip. You have heard us emphasize time and time again that all teachers are language teachers. And what we mean by this is that all teachers have the responsibility to teach not only their content, but the language that accompanies it. For example, if I'm teaching my students about character traits, I need to make sure that they have a large repertoire of adjectives. They also need to be proficient at using personal pronouns. Or let's say I'm teaching a cycle in science, photosynthesis or mitosis. I need to intentionally spotlight sequential language, like first, next, then, initially, subsequently, and ultimately. As teachers, we're used to sharing content objective with our students that identify what they're learning. But we also need to be good about creating language objectives, because language objectives identify the nuances of the language students need to know in order to show that they've mastered the content. When teachers plan and write a strong content objective and language objective, they need to ask themselves 3 important questions about the language objective. First, what language domain are my students practicing? Reading, writing, listening, speaking? Second, what is the essential vocabulary that my students need in order to communicate mastery? And third, what sentence structures will my students need to know so that they're able to communicate their ideas clearly? Asking these questions in advance provides clarity during the lesson and enables the teacher to share with the students at the onset of the lesson these important tools that they'll be practicing. Let's look at an example. In this video, a 4th grade teacher is working on a math unit about fractions. She begins her lesson by sharing her content objective with her students.
All right, graders, we're going to continue talking about fractions today. Yesterday, we reviewed how fractions are part of a whole. Today, our objective is going to be part of a set. Let's all read together our objectives, our math targets for today. We can interpret fractions as a part of a set, and we can explain the parts of a fraction. Excellent.
Next, the teacher spotlights the essential vocabulary words, like fraction, numerator, denominator, part, and whole.
All right, let's review our vocabulary that we talked about yesterday. So we're ready to talk and write like mathematicians today. Remember that a fraction is part of a whole, or today we're going to think about it as part of a set. When you have multiple objects and you're only looking at a few of them, or part of the bigger set. Let's remind ourselves what denominator is. Let's stand up so we can use our bodies to help us remember. The denominator, the D stands for down, so denominator is the bottom number of a fraction, representing the whole, or total in the set. And the numerator is the top number in a fraction, representing the part. That's where we have that U for up.
And lastly, in the form of sentence frames, she models for the students the language that they need to know in order to share their ideas. These sentence frames empower students to produce strong sentences that reflect their understanding of fractions.
Today we are going to use these sentence frames to help us talk and write like mathematicians when we're explaining and expressing the parts of a set. We're going to get cards. You're going to get a stack of cards at your desk, and you will draw a set of cards like this one. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in this set. So where would I put the 5 in my fraction? Remember that the number in the whole set represents which part, Kathy? The denominator. So we put a 5 in our denominator because I can see 5 cards in this set, so 5 is the denominator. Okay, but when we're thinking about fractions, we're thinking about parts of the set. The part of the set that we're going to look at is spades. Which cards are spades? How many cards do we see that are this part of it. Right, Matt? Two. There's 1, 2. I see 2 in this set. 2 spades. We can even say I see 2 spades in this set. So 2 is the numerator. So how would we represent or explain this fraction with our voice? Let's use the last sentence string to help us. The fraction that represents the number of spades in this set is, how do we say this fraction?
2/5.
2/5. All right, turn to your shoulder partner and explain the fraction.
Purposeful planning that incorporates language development is so advantageous for our English learners. They need us to spotlight and to scaffold language whenever and wherever we can. How will you be more intentional about planning for language growth this week? Happy planning and teaching, and thank you for all that you do.